जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन व्रज जन रंजना। यशोदनंदन व्रज जन रंजना। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तेरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी। यशोदनंदन व्रज जन रंजना। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। यमुना तीरा वनचारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय राधा माधवा कुंज विहारी। जय कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। कृष्ण रुक्मिणी जय सत्यभामा। जय गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। गौरनिताय जय गौरनिताय। जय जय प्रभुपाद 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 प्रभुपाद। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस विश्वगुरु ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजकाचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद डिवाइन ग्रेस श्रील भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। ग्रंथराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय। श्री श्री कृष्णा रुक्मिणी सत्यभामा की जय। श्री श्री गौरनिताय की जय। विश्वगुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Reading from Shrimat Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, Fundamental Principles of Material Nature, text number 31. Taijasani Indriyani Eva Taijasani Indriyanyeva Taijasani Indriyanyeva Kriya Jnana Vibhagasaha Kriya Jnana Vibhagasaha Kriya Jnana Vibhagasaha Pranasya Hi Kriya Shakti Pranasya Hi Kriya Shaktir Pranasya Hi Kriya Shaktir Buddhehe Vijnana Shaktita Buddhir Vijnana Shaktita Buddhir Vijnana Shaktita Taijasani Indriyanyeva Kriya Jnana Vibhagacha Pranasya Hi Kriya Shaktir Buddhir Vijnana Shaktita Taijasani Indriyanyeva Kriya Jnana Vibhagacha Pranasya Hi Kriya Shaktir Buddhir Vijnana Shaktita
Tejasānindriyānyeva Kriyānyāna vibhagasaha Pranasya hi kriya shaktihi Buddhir vijnana shaktita
Tejasānindriyānyeva Kriyājnāna vibhāgasaha Pranasya hi kriya shaktir Buddhir vijnana shaktita
Tejasānindriyānyeva Kriyājnāna vibhāgasaha Pranasya kriya sakti Buddhi vijnana saktita.
Taijasani, produced from egoism in the mode of passion. Indriyani, the senses. Eva, certainly. Kriya, action. Jnana, knowledge. Vibhagasaha, according to. Pranasya, of the vital energy. He, indeed. Kriya Shakti, the senses of action. Buddhehe, of the intelligence. Vijnana Shaktita, the senses for acquiring knowledge. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Egoism in the mode of passion produces two kinds of senses, the senses for acquiring knowledge, and the senses of action. The senses of action depend on the vital energy, and the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence. Kindly repeat. Egoism in the mode of passion produces two kinds of senses: the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses of action. The senses of action depend on the vital energy, and the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It has been explained in the previous verses that mind is the product of ego in goodness, and that the function of the mind is acceptance and rejection according to desire. But here, intelligence is said to be the product of ego in passion. That is the distinction between mind and intelligence. Mind is a product of egoism in goodness, and intelligence is a product of egoism in passion. The desire to accept something and reject something is a very important factor of the mind. Since mind is a product of the mode of goodness, if it is fixed upon the Lord of the mind, Aniruddha, then the mind can be changed to Krishna consciousness. It is stated by Narottam Das Thakur that we always have desires. Desire cannot be stopped. But if we transfer our desires to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the perfection of life. As soon as the desire is transferred to lording it over material nature, it becomes contaminated by matter. Desire has to be purified. In the beginning, this purification process has to be carried out by the order of the spiritual master. Since the spiritual master knows how the disciples' desires can be transformed into Krishna consciousness. As far as intelligence is concerned, it is clearly stated here that it is a product of egoism in passion. By practice, one comes to the point of the mode of goodness, and by surrendering or fixing the mind upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one becomes a very great personality or Mahatma. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly said, Sa Mahatma Sudurlabhaha. Such a great soul is very rare. In this verse, it is clear that both kinds of senses, the senses for acquiring knowledge and the senses for action, are products of egoism in the mode of passion. And because the sense organs for activity and for acquiring knowledge require energy, the vital energy or life energy is also produced by egoism in the mode of passion. We can actually see, therefore, that those who are very passionate can improve in material acquisition very quickly. It is recommended in the Vedic scriptures that if one wants to encourage a person in acquiring material possessions, one should also encourage him in sex life. We naturally find that those who are addicted to sex life are also materially advanced, because sex life or passionate life is the impetus for the material advancement of civilization. For those who want to make spiritual advancement, there is almost no existence of the mode of passion. Only the mode of goodness is prominent. We find that those who engage in Krishna consciousness are materially poor, but one who has eyes can see who is the greater. Although he appears to be materially poor, a person in Krishna consciousness is not actually a poor man, but the person who has no taste for Krishna consciousness and appears to be very happy with material possessions is actually poor. Persons infatuated by material consciousness are very intelligent in discovering things for material comforts, but they have no access to understanding the spirit soul and spiritual life. Therefore, if anyone wants to advance in spiritual life, he has to come back to the platform of purified desire, the purified desire for devotional service. As stated in the Narada Pancharatra, engagement in the service of the Lord, when the senses are purified in Krishna consciousness, is called pure devotion. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Mande Shri Gurum Deenataranam. Just last week, Apple released the latest version of iPhone 17. And they released it simultaneously all over the world. In India also it was released. And Apple has its stores in different major cities, Delhi, Bombay, all those places. So on the specified date on which the iPhone was supposed to be released, there was a big queue of people lining up to be able to enter the Apple stores and to buy the iPhone 17, newly released. And the stores were supposed to open in Delhi, Bombay, wherever they had stores in India, they were supposed to open at about 8 a.m. or something like that. And people started queuing up right from Brahma Muhurta time. We are celebrating Mangalarti here, they are celebrating Mangalarti there in front of the Apple stores. Long queues, huge crowd. And some stores, some people started fighting with each other, throwing punches, I am the first to get in, you come later, and all these kind of things. That's the kind of, intense, feverish anticipation to get their hands on the iPhone, newest iPhone. So people waited for hours together, 4 hours, 5 hours in the queues. And finally, when the stores opened, they all rushed in, got whatever they wanted, all those. And people came out of the stores taking pictures, showing, yes, I got the iPhone and all that. And media is also covering all this, putting photographs. So, a lot of excitement. About a week later comes the announcement from the President of America, Donald Trump. We are going to increase the H-1B visa fees to $100,000. People are all scrambling. There were visuals from the aeroplanes standing in USA, in San Francisco airport. And Indians are sitting inside the aircraft. Aircraft is going to come to India. And the moment the Trump administration announced this, the people have got up from their seats and telling the air hostess and all those people, please allow us to get out. We don't want to go back to India, because if we go to India and we have to come back, we have to pay $100,000, which is about 80 lakh rupees, 90 lakh rupees. Not a small amount. They are all pleading, crying, let us out of the aircraft. A huge number of people. Because every year it is said that about 200,000 people apply for the US H-1B visa from India. And the total number of permitted H-1B visas from the US is only 65,000, plus 20,000 for students. But for work visa, it is only about 65,000. So eventually, about 40 to 50,000 Indians get the visa out of 200,000 applicants. You can imagine only about 25% actually get the visa. So naturally, and now on top of that, you are putting $100,000 visa fees. People's dreams are all getting shattered. People are all thinking, what will happen now? People who had aspirations to go to the US, they are completely shattered. And those who are on H-1B visa in the US already, they are also in great anxiety. What is going to happen to us? We also have to shell out $100,000. What do we have to do? And companies are issuing directives to their employees who had come to India for Diwali. Come back before 21st, otherwise we don't know what is going to happen. So they are all dropping everything and rushing back. Forget Diwali. We go back to the US. One man was in Rome. He had gone to Rome with his wife or somebody. And suddenly he got the news that this H-1B visa is getting increased to $100,000. He left his wife there and ran to the US. And she's sitting in Rome thinking, where did this guy disappear? All kinds of crazy things happening. So, Apple, US product, people were all so feverish. Suddenly this announcement dampened everything. Anyway, people will find a way around all these things. So, actually, Srila Prabhupada told a story once, a humorous story. Prabhupada said there was some mines, coal mines in Sheffield in the United Kingdom. And one pastor, one father had gone there to preach about Christianity to the miners. And Prabhupada went amongst them, the pastor went amongst them, amongst the miners, and called all of them together, got them together, and started talking to them. And he said that all of you must surrender to Jesus. If you don't surrender to Jesus, what is the use? And these miners, they are all known by their numbers. They all have certain identity numbers. So one of the miners asked the pastor, what is his number? Jesus Christ's number. So they thought the pastor is referring to someone amongst the miners. So the miner said, no. The pastor said, no, he is not a miner. He is the Lord. He is the messenger of God. He is the Son of God. And if you don't surrender to him, you all will have to go to hell. So one of the miners asked him, what is this hell? What is it? Where is this hell? What is it like? So the pastor replied, hell is a very terrible place. Very dark, damp, and no sunlight, very depressing place. So the miners were looking at each other. Every day they are in the mines, it is that only there. So what is the difference? So the pastor realized, these people are not, it's not impacting them. Hell, the description of hell is not making any difference to them. So he thought how to convince them. So he told them there are no newspapers in hell. And the miners immediately, what a horrible place. Because those days, reading newspapers means, people used to, that is an inseparable part of their life. Modern day, if you want to tell people, if that pastor had been preaching in today's times, he would have probably said, there is no social media there. And people would have, oh my God, no social media. How can we survive there? That kind of thing. So, the point that Prabhupada was trying to make was that having got the human form of life, we should not be simply working hard to maintain our body. The human form of life is meant to understand God and our relationship with Him. like that pastor was telling all the miners, that you have to surrender to Jesus, you have to know about Jesus. Otherwise, you'll all go to hell. Actually, we are already leading a hellish life. So, human form of life is meant actually for realizing God and who is God, what is His name, what is His address, who are God's parents, and reviving our forgotten relationship with God and going back to God's kingdom. That is what human life is meant for. Shri Krishna Rukmini Satyabhama ki jai. But although this is the human form of life, unfortunately, vast majority of the people are not interested in knowing about God or reviving their original forgotten relationship with God. They are not interested in these things. What are the vast majority of people interested in? Just like when Donald Trump announced that they are going to impose a visa fee of $100,000 on H-1B visas. What happened? The whole world is shaken up, especially Indians, because 70% of the visas go to Indians. About 40,000-50,000 Indians are affected annually. And 200,000, more than 200,000 applicants are there. Out of that, only 50,000 get to go. Now, that is also under risk. Whether companies will be ready to shell out $100,000 to get Indians to go to the US. So why is this creating such a big anxiety amongst Indians? Because for the Indians, America is the land of dreams. If you go to America, we can make money, have a good life. And if you remain in India, life is not all that great. So aspiration of the people, vast majority, 200,000 people wanting to go to the US every year is not a small number. So many, that means 250,000 people every year want to go to the US. And I'm sure there must be more numbers going to other parts of the world like Europe, Saudi, etc. So why do people not want to stay in India? Because India is also a big country. 140 crore people are living here, so why can't another 500,000 people stay here? No, we want to go abroad. We want to go to Australia. We want to go to the US. We want to go to England. We want to go to Dubai. All these places. Why? Because people feel if we go there, we can have a better life. Better life meaning what? More comforts for engaging in sense gratification. So, Prahlad Maharaj describes this motivation or drive amongst the vast majority of the people to search for better and better facilities for sense gratification. Although the human form of life is meant for realizing Krishna, God, and our relationship with Him, vast majority of the people are not interested in that. They are interested in sense gratification. So this phenomenon is described by Prahlad Maharaj in the 7th canto of the Shrimat Bhagavatam, where he says, Yan maituna adigrahamedi sukham hitucham kandu yanena karayor iva dukkha dukkam tripyanti neha kripana bahudukka bhajaha kandutivan manasijam vishayeta dhiraha. So Prahlad Maharaj says that in this material world, the people are undergoing great difficulties. They are undertaking great trouble to improve their facilities for sense gratification. Dukkha dukkam, they are undertaking severe austerities, tapasyas, difficulties. Like for a person, if he has to go from India to the US, it's not easy. So they have to stand in the queue, they have to pay so much money, and then they have to compete with so many other people who want to go to the US. And then when you go to the US, you have to work hard there, you have to be productive, you have to be competent. Only then you can continue there, otherwise you'll get thrown out and you'll have to come back. Not easy, very tough. So why are people undergoing so much trouble? Because they want to increase their comforts for sense gratification. So Prahlad Maharaj is saying, why are people so much ready to take so much difficulty, so much trouble, so much risk to go to better places where they can have greater facilities for sense gratification? Yen maithuna adi grihamedi sukham, because of the pleasure they experience in family life. Grihamedi sukham. That grihamedi sukham, the pleasure in the family, in the household life, is characterized by the greatest happiness in that family life, which is maithunadi, the pleasure derived out of sex life. That is the greatest pleasure. And in order to, because they are addicted to that sense gratification in the family life, yen maithunadi grihamedi sukham hitucham kanduyanena karayoriva dukkha dukkham. And that pleasure, sex pleasure in family life, is like the pleasure derived from itching. Suppose in your hand or leg, there is some itch. There is an urge to itch. And you start itching. What will happen? You will feel some satisfaction. But after a little while, that place will become red. And then blisters will form. And then again you will feel that itching. Again you will itch. After a little while, little satisfaction. After a few seconds or few minutes, again the itching sensation will come. So you go on itching. What will happen? The skin will get ruptured. It will start bleeding. You will get injured. You see, this is the nature of itching. Itching, when it itches, you cannot stop yourself. You have to scratch. And when you go on doing it, what will happen? Eventually, you will harm yourself. So, Prahlad Maharaj is saying, this addiction to sex life is like that. When a man and a woman come together, because of that attraction, because of those lusty desires, what happens? They will eventually enter into a commitment, a committed relationship. And in that committed relationship, there are children. And then the children have to be maintained. The household expenses have to be taken care of. The future has to be secured. So the person feels, I have to work hard, I have to earn money. Otherwise, how will I maintain all these things? So the drive for engaging in hard work to improve the comforts of life originally comes from that lusty desire to enjoy sex life. And now, when people engage like this, so what we can understand is the impetus for increasing the comforts in material, in our household life comes from where? It comes from sex life. And so, if there is an increase in the facilities for sex life, what happens? There is a greater drive to increase the comforts of material life. And that's what you can see in the Western world. Western world is so much focused upon sex life. And that is why that whole Western world, the facilities for sense gratification are very high. Constantly their science, their technology, their medical science, the political system, the business world, everybody, the education system, everything is oriented towards increasing the comforts of material life, increasing the comforts of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. And so therefore, you see, when you look at the United States, when you look at Europe, you look at these Western countries, whether it is defense, whether it is science and technology, whether it is comfortable living in the house, all these comforts, all these gadgets, air conditioners, heaters, aeroplanes, modern warfare systems, all these things are most advanced in the Western world. Why? Because in the Western world, you will see sex life is freely available. Everybody indulges in it. And that's the central focus of their life. And so therefore, what happens? Their impetus to advance materially, economically, scientifically, these things are very prominent. India is also imitating them, going in their footsteps. But still, India is so, backward. In at least 20-25 years, India is behind the Western world in terms of the facilities for sense gratification that they have. Why? Because even today, India, there is a lot of religious and spiritual seeking that goes on amongst the Indians. And so therefore, that drive is not so strong, and therefore India is so much backward. So when the focus is spiritual life, that drive for sense gratification and increasing the comforts in material life reduces. Whereas if the drive is if the focus is on sex life, what happens? The drive to improve the comforts, have better life, have things very systematic, and everything, for every single thing you have machine. If you want to brush your teeth, there is a machine for that. If you want to shave, there is a machine for that. Everything, there is some convenience which is there. So all this is stemming out of that desire for enjoying sex life between man and woman. And so therefore Prahlad Maharaj says that this whole material world, yan maithuna adigrihame sukham, because of this enjoyment of sex life, there is that drive to engage in material sense gratification. But this enjoyment which comes out of material sense gratification, which comes out of sex life, is grihame sukham hi tucham. It is most insignificant, it is most abominable. And for just some very insignificant, small amount of pleasure, what is happening? Karayoriva dukkha dukkam. Like the itching sensation we want to fulfill, and we end up injuring ourselves, the people are harming themselves spiritually. And materially also, they are undergoing so much distress. That desire, that aspiration is there amongst the human beings, among the Indians, that we should go to the United States so that we can earn money. And suddenly, Donald Trump imposes $100,000. Oh, misery. You see how that aspiration, if somebody doesn't aspire at all, I don't want to go to the US, let Donald Trump put $100,000 or $100 million, it doesn't make any difference to me. But the moment my goal becomes going to the US, I have to make money, I have to become rich, I need this, I need that, what happens? Immediately there is distress. I invite distress upon myself. So, therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says that yen maithunadi grihame sukham hitucham kanduyanena karayoriva dukkha dukkam natripyanti kripana bahu dukkha bhajaha. Bahu dukkha bhaja. They undertake great distressful conditions. They undergo great austerities simply to enjoy this tuchha sukha, this insignificant happiness of sex life. And he says, natripyanti. Although the person may undergo so much distress, he may undertake so much austerity, great difficulty, great endeavor, and he says, no problem, I will take that endeavor because at least some little pleasure is there, and for that I am ready to take this distressful situations, I am ready to do all the hard work. Natripyanti. Even after that, they will never be satisfied. It is not that all those people who went from India to America, got an H-1B visa, finally got a green card, they are all settled in the US, and they have no more desires to fulfill. They are fully satisfied. No, they are still dissatisfied. So you see how this is? It's a big illusion that I do a little hard work and I improve the facilities, I go abroad, improve the facilities in my life, and I'll be satisfied. You will never be satisfied. Natripyanti. And not only is the happiness very insignificant, it is also not satisfying. And therefore, Prahlad Maharaj says, Natripyanti kripana bahudukka bhajaha. Therefore, those people who run after this very insignificant sex pleasure, and to fulfill that, they are undertaking great distresses, inventing big corporations, big machines, and doing all these kind of things. just to increase the comforts of material life. Such people are kripana, they are all misers. Why are they misers? Because who is a miser? A miser is a person who has a lot of money, asset in his hand, and he doesn't use it. He keeps it. Oh, I should store it separately. Nobody should use it. And he lives in great poverty. So what do we tell such people? You have got 100 crore rupees in the bank, but you are living in some slum in a very dilapidated room without any facilities. What you will tell? Arey, what is this miserly fellow? He has so much money in the bank. Why can't he have a proper house and put an air conditioner and have a car and have a little comforts? No. He is a miser. Miser means one who does not know how to utilize the assets which are there in his hand properly. Such a person is called a miser. So having got the human form of life, what are we supposed to do? We are supposed to revive our Krishna consciousness. And what do? We use that body for material sense gratification, which is so tuchha, abominable, and which is available even in every animal species. So that happiness which is available in animal species, in the human form also we are running after that. Then what is the use? We are misers. So when we speak of the senses, we have 5 knowledge acquiring senses: the eyes, the nose, the tongue, the skin, the ears. And there are 5 working senses: the hands, the legs, the genitals, the rectum, and the voice. So all the 10 senses put together are meant for serving Krishna. It is said about Ambarish Maharaj that Mana Krishna Padaravinde, he engaged his mind in the remembering the lotus feet of Krishna, and he engaged his feet in walking to the temples of Krishna. So you see, your legs you can use for walking to temple of Krishna, like so many thousands of people go to Tirupati. Tirupati Venkateshwara. Venkateshwara is, Prabhupada says, in Apabhramsha for Vaikunteshwara. The Ishwara, the Lord of Vaikuntha, he is known as Vaikunteshwara, Narayana, Vishnu. And Apabhramsha of that becomes Venkateshwara. So many people stand in the queue, thousands of people every day stand in the queue to have darshan of Venkateshwara. So you can use your legs to go to the temple of the Lord and stand in the queue to have his darshan and progress spiritually, or you can choose to stand in the queue to buy an iPhone 17 in front of the Apple store and end up fighting with others. You can stand in the queue to have darshan of Krishna in the temple, or you can stand in the queue to get a visa to the US. So it is in our hand how we want to use our senses. So if we use our feet in standing in the queue to get an iPhone, we'll end up with distress and misery. If we use our feet in standing in the queue to get an H1B visa, what will happen? We'll end up with distress. We'll never be satisfied. Even if you get the visa in your hand and you go to the US, even if you get a green card, you'll still be miserable, you'll still not be satisfied. On the other hand, if you use your leg to stand in the queue to have darshan of Krishna, you use your voice in chanting Krishna's holy name, you use your eyes in seeing the form of Krishna in the temple, what happens? You will become completely peaceful, satisfied, and happy, blissful. This is the result which is waiting for us. And so therefore, Kandu Tivan Karayor Iva Dukkha Dukkam, Kandu Yanena Karayor Iva Dukkha Dukkam, and Kandu Tivan Manasijam Vishaheta Dhiraha. A Dhira, a sober person, he will not run after sex life or increasing the comforts of material life. He understands that this attraction for sex life, this attraction for fulfilling one's lusty desires, this attraction for iPhone 17, this attraction for going to the US on an H1B visa, all these things are manasijam. They are all concoctions of the mind. Somebody is living in India, he is not running after H1B visa, he can be peaceful, no? He can be happy. And a person who got an H1B visa, went to the US, got a green card, he is walking on the street and he gets shot and killed. So what does he gain? So it is all our mental concoction. No, if I go to the US, I'll be happy. Person who is not happy here will not be happy anywhere in the world. This is the reality, but people don't understand this. Therefore, dhiraha, a sober person, will understand that there is no point running after material sense gratification. Instead, what I should do, let me not stand in the queue for iPhone 17, let me not stand in the queue for H1B visa, let me stand in the queue to go back to Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. So therefore, here it is being mentioned that the senses of action depend on the vital energy and the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on intelligence. So, the senses are not independent. The working senses are directed by the mind and the knowledge acquiring senses are directed by intelligence. So, whatever knowledge we acquire in the material world, any knowledge that you acquire in the material world, science, technology, biology, botany, mathematics, law, politics, or even spiritual knowledge, you have to acquire it through one of these 5 senses only. Either through your eyes, or your ears, or your skin, or your tongue, or your nose. These are the only 5 ways to acquire knowledge. There is no other way. There is no 6th way to acquire knowledge. If you have some abstract concept in mathematics, you have to reduce it to an equation. And that equation you have to write on a paper, and when you write on a paper, you have to read it. That means you have to reduce it to something which you can see. You see how this is? In this material world, there is no other way than these 5 senses to acquire knowledge. No matter how much we advance in science, technology, all that, you cannot invent a 6th way to acquire knowledge for us, for the human being. Not possible. There are only 5 ways. So, you see how the Vedic knowledge, the Shrimat Bhagavatam, is giving us such intricate and fine details of the material body. What are the functions of intelligence? How the senses are controlled by intelligence? And intelligence is what you use to acquire knowledge, isn't it? Memory is a function of intelligence, which is what we have learnt in the previous verse. There are 5 functions of intelligence. Samshayo atha viparyaso nischayah smritirevacha swapa ityuchyate buddher lakshanam vrittitah pratak. Doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory and sleep are said to be the distinct characteristics of intelligence. Which science book will teach you this? Which science book will teach you that, as it is said today, Buddher Vijnana Shaktita, the senses for acquiring knowledge depend on the intelligence. If your intelligence is not working properly, although you may have an object in front of your eyes, you will not be able to make out. And that is why you will see somebody, you take an iPhone to him and give it to him and say, this is an iPhone. Immediately picks it up and starts using it. And you will say, oh, this man has never seen an iPhone before in his life. Moment he got it in his hand, he figured out how to use it. He's a very intelligent guy. Why? Because he is able to correctly apprehend how to use this instrument. And there is another person, you take the instrument to him, you show him how to use it, how to open it, and he struggles to use it. And he keeps making mistakes. What you will say, dull fellow. So many times I showed him, not able to understand. You see, the same object may be present in front of you and another person. You are very intelligent, you can immediately use it, put it to good use. You understand how to use it. Another person, same object, he is also saying the same thing, he is also holding the same thing in his hand. But he is not able to use it properly. Why? Because intelligence is very low. So, Buddher Vijnana Shaktita, the senses for acquiring knowledge, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue and the skin depend on intelligence. If intelligence is sharp, you can make very good use of these senses to acquire knowledge. If the intelligence is dull, Although these objects may be there in front of your eyes, or you may be hearing about it, or you may be tasting it, you cannot make out. So you see, this understanding that the 5 objects of senses, the 5 knowledge acquiring senses are the only means to acquire knowledge in the material world, and they are under the direction of intelligence. Which science book teaches you this? There is no science book will teach you this. But the Bhagavatam is so clearly, so easily describing this. And the Bhagavatam is describing this, Kapila Deva is describing this. Why? So that we can use our intelligence and understand how Krishna has created this body with all its intricate functions and characteristics. There is the mind, there is the intelligence. The mind has certain functions, desiring. The mind has the function of accepting and rejection, and thinking, feeling, willing. These are the functions of the mind. Functions of intelligence, they are doubt, misapprehension, correct apprehension, memory and sleep. And then the working senses, there is something called working senses. And these working senses are directed by the mind. And there are 5 knowledge acquiring senses, they are directed by the intelligence. So intricately, Krishna has designed this body. So whenever we have to use our senses, whenever we see something, we hear something, we taste something, we smell something, we touch something, we can immediately remember, oh, this is how Krishna has built this body. So the whole idea of describing, the Bhagavatam describing how the body is made up of, how the material body is made up, even that knowledge is available in the Shrimat Bhagavatam, because it is to help us to constantly remember Krishna. Whatever we do, whatever we engage in, we are able to remember, see Krishna's hand everywhere. We are able to remember this and see this. So therefore, the Bhagavatam is giving knowledge about the material body also. Spiritual life does not mean that we simply hear about Krishna's Rasa Leela with the gopis. Sahajiyas do that. They directly jump into the 10th canto of the Shrimat Bhagavatam and they do Bhagavata Saptaha, Bhagavat Katha. This is their understanding of Bhagavatam. We also hear Bhagavatam, not 7 days. 365 days a year we hear Bhagavatam. Every day we hear Bhagavatam. But how are we hearing Bhagavatam? Verse by verse. So this is a very special way of studying Bhagavatam. This is not an ordinary way of studying Bhagavatam. Because every verse we are meditating upon. And you see, when we speak of the Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam is speaking of intelligence, mind, the senses, their functions, their interactions. Why? Because the material energy is also an energy of Krishna. So if you have to understand Krishna, first we have to understand his material energy, then his spiritual energy, then we can understand Krishna, and after understanding Krishna, then we can understand his dealings with the gopis. So therefore, the dealings of Krishna with the gopis comes in the 10th canto. And before the 10th canto, there are 9 other cantos, where elaborately the material universe, the material body, its construction, its creation, its annihilation, all these things are described. These are all the actions of the material energy of Krishna. And so therefore, it has connection to Krishna. So if you have to understand Krishna fully, we have to understand not only Krishna, we have to not only understand Krishna's activities in the spiritual world, we also have to understand his material energy. And so therefore, the Bhagavatam in the beginning describes elaborately in great detail the functioning of the material energy, especially how creation takes place, how it is maintained, and how it is annihilated. All these things are described in great detail in the Shrimat Bhagavatam. And what is the Shrimat Bhagavatam? At the end of every chapter of the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada mentions, it is said that Bhashoyam Brahma Sutranam, that with this ends this chapter of the Shrimat Bhagavatam, which is a natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutras. So, if we study Bhagavatam like this, verse by verse, meditating upon the different aspects of Krishna, including the material energy, how our subtle body works, how our gross body works. All these things, it is essential for us to understand if we have to understand Krishna in full. If we have to understand the supreme absolute truth in full. If we want to understand the Parabrahman, the Param Satya in full, then we have to understand both the material and spiritual aspects of Krishna. And so therefore, the Bhagavatam describes all these things in great detail. So, these are some of the things which we can understand from today's verse. I'll stop here. If anybody has any question or comment, we can discuss. Yes, please. Vedatma Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So, intelligence is the product of egoism and the passion.
Yes.
So, Prabhupada in the purport says, by practice, you can come to the mode of goodness. So, what
Yes.
does it mean?
Sorry?
How to understand this?
So, by practice of
Devotion.
not devotional service, if you simply practice the Brahminical principles, Satyam, Shaucham, Daya, Kshama, if we practice the principles of cleanliness, truthfulness, humility, and astikya, faith in God, faith in the revealed scriptures, if we practice all these things, our food habits, if we eat sattvic food, if we practice every day getting up early in the morning, all these things if you practice, you can elevate your mind and intelligence to the sattva guna, the mode of goodness. So, if you desire to elevate yourself to sattva guna, you follow those practices, you can elevate yourself to sattva guna. Your mind and intelligence, you are desiring, first you have to desire to be in sattva guna. Then comes the action following it by the mind and the intelligence, and from the mind and the intelligence, naturally the senses will also follow. Because the mind is the master of the senses. So, if the mind has accepted that yes, I want to be in sattva guna, then the senses will follow. They will follow all the practices which are required. Now, by practicing devotional life, what happens is, we directly shift to the platform of Vishuddha Sattva, the platform of purified goodness, not material goodness, spiritual goodness. So, when we practice spiritual life, when we chant Krishna's holy name, when we serve the instructions of a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada, accepting him as our Diksha Guru, what happens? Our consciousness, our subtle body starts changing. First, we will get elevated to Sattva-guna. We will become Brahmanas. And that's how, when we become serious in spiritual life, we start following all the regulative principles properly. Then we take Brahmana Diksha, second initiation. So, second initiation means my subtle body has changed. I may not have taken birth in a Brahmana family. I might have taken birth in a Kshatriya family, in a Vaishya family, in a Shudra family, not even Hindu family. I might have taken in a Christian family. I might have taken birth in a Muslim family or atheist family, whatever family I have taken birth in. My subtle body gets changed by following the principles of four regulative principles and the other practices of devotional service. And when we become fixed up in that, what happens? We receive Harinam Diksha. And after receiving Harinam Diksha, when we are more fixed up, more purified, then second initiation, Brahmana Diksha. That means we are recognized that now we have come to Brahmana platform. That means we are now in Sattva Guna. Then we progress further and develop Vaishnava qualities. Then we become Vaishnavas, we go to the spiritual platform, Vishuddha Sattva platform. So to come to the platform of goodness, we can either follow the material principles of Brahminical life, which are described by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, Satyam, Chaucham, Kshama, Daya, Arjavam, Astikyam, all these kind of things, simplicity, living a simple life, not aspiring to increase one's wealth and fame and followers and all these kind of things. These are all characteristics of a person in Sattva-guna, in the mode of goodness. So we can either cultivate that, and if we cultivate that, it will take many, many lifetimes to come to fully to the platform of goodness. Or we can practice spiritual life, we can practice devotional life, we can practice bhakti yoga, And within this very lifetime, we can elevate it to Sattva-guna, to that of a Brahmana, and we can go even beyond that to the spiritual platform. Is that okay? Yes.
Prabhu, like mind is product of ego in goodness and intelligence is the product of ego in passion.
Yes.
But intelligence is superior to mind.
Yes.
But here mode of goodness anyway is superior to passion. So how
True. True. Prabhupada has explained in the purport in the previous verses when the Bhagavatam was, when Kapila Deva was talking about the functions of the mind, that mind is the product of ego in the mode of goodness, yes. But what happens is the moment we come into the material world, we start associating with the mode of goodness, with the mode of passion and ignorance, with the modes of Rajoguna and Tamoguna, and we start desiring to engage in activities which are steeped in Rajoguna and Tamoguna. Immediately the mind comes down to that platform of Tamoguna and Rajoguna. So that is how the mind becomes, when we develop desires which are related to Rajoguna and Tamoguna, the mind also becomes contaminated by that. But then, originally, the mind is coming out of the false ego in the mode of goodness. And so therefore, Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita that Atma iva ripur atmanaha, Atma iva bandhur atmanaha. Krishna says the mind is the greatest enemy of the soul as well as the greatest friend. So when we use our intelligence and engage in activities of Sattva-guna, the intelligence will also get elevated to Sattva-guna, mind will also come to Sattva-guna. Then what happens? The mind is man's greatest friend, because that mind in Sattva-guna will fix us at the lotus feet of Krishna. Mana Krishna padaravindayoho. Our mind will get fixed up at the lotus feet of Krishna, and then we can get out of the cycle of birth and death. That same mind, if it is contaminated with Rajoguna and Tamoguna, with the modes of passion and ignorance, what happens? We will become attracted to the comforts of material life, to the facilities of sense gratification which is available in the material world. And if the mind becomes attracted to that, what will happen? We will get stuck to the cycle of repeated birth and death within the material world. And so therefore, the mind which is uncontrolled is the greatest enemy. So this is how we have to understand. So although the mind is a product of the mode of goodness, still it is subservient to the intelligence, because intelligence is the one with which you can elevate the mind back to Sattva-guna. Otherwise, once the mind is contaminated with Rajoguna and Tamoguna, it becomes subservient to the intelligence. And once you are back into Sattva-guna, your mind is fixed on Krishna's lotus feet, what happens? Then the intelligence will accordingly follow. If your mind is fixed on the lotus feet of Krishna, constantly you are remembering Krishna throughout your day, what will your intelligence do? Your intelligence will only be thinking of ways and means of serving Krishna. You have no other desire. So then, Atma iva bandhur atmanaha, then the mind has become the greatest friend. So that's how. These are all very intricate things, although one is a product of the mode of goodness, another is a product of the mode of passion. Still, the intelligence is superior to the mind. Is that okay? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
As you stated here that knowledge can be acquired only by 5 senses.
Yes.
But there are some class of people who claim themselves as yogis. So they do some meditation, they close their eye, they go to Himalayas, and then after some time they declare themselves as a self-realized person, God, all knowledge.
Yes.
So how we can understand that if they have really acquired knowledge by simply closing eye and meditation, is there any other way to gain knowledge in this way?
Yes. So when we speak of meditation and yogis, so now the question is, where did he learn meditation from? How did he learn meditation? He approached some guru, right? He went to the Himalayas, found a yogi, and heard from him how to practice meditation, or he saw him practicing meditation and he followed, right? So he acquired that knowledge for meditation. How? By hearing and seeing only. There is no other way, right? That's number one. Number two is, and when he starts meditating, when a real yogi, when he starts meditating and controls his senses and all these kind of things, yama, niyama, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, and finally he comes to samadhi. When he follows all that process, internally he is searching out for Vishnu within his heart, Paramatma. And eventually, when he sees Vishnu within his heart, then he becomes self-realized. So that self-realization comes how? By seeing Paramatma within the heart. So he is seeing there also. There is an internal seeing, there is an external seeing. So when it comes to spiritual life, the Lord has to reveal himself within the heart to our spiritual senses. So that spiritual knowledge is different. Material knowledge we acquire through the five senses. But when it comes to knowledge of spiritual life, when it comes to knowledge about Krishna, what does the Shastra state? Nabhaved grahyam indriyaihi. Shri Krishna namadi nabhaved grahyam indriyaihi. With your five senses, you can acquire material knowledge. But to be able to see Krishna and to be able to grasp knowledge about Krishna, it is not possible just with the material senses. You need Krishna to reveal himself to you in your heart. Although I may read Bhagavad Gita, I am using my eyes and I am reading Bhagavad Gita. How many people actually understand by reading the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead? Most of them end up thinking, I am also Brahman, Krishna is also Brahman. Above Krishna there is some impersonal Brahman, I am that Brahman. They end up thinking like that. False conception they enter into. Only when you come and hear, when you read Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, you understand that Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. So unless the kripa of a pure devotee is there, or there is kripa of Krishna directly, you cannot understand Krishna. So in order to acquire spiritual life, you can undergo the with great difficulty, you can undergo the path of yogis. Yama, niyama, pratyahara, dharana, all these kind of things. To control the senses, to be able to see Vishnu within your heart, you can do all that. Another easier way is simply remember Krishna, the lotus feet of Krishna. Mana Krishna padara vindayoho. Example of Ambarish Maharaj. If you simply practice coming to the temple, seeing the form of Krishna in the temple, and remembering that, carrying that remembrance of the lotus feet of Krishna whom you see in the temple, then you have already achieved what a great big yogi, Ashtanga yogi, Hatha yogi is sitting and following the process of Yama, Niyama, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, and finally coming to the stage of Samadhi. You already reached there. So the point is that a yogi acquiring knowledge is dependent on his Guru and Krishna, revealing that knowledge within the heart. That is why it is spiritual knowledge. You cannot acquire it by your material senses. We may hear about Krishna with our material ears. We may read the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam with our material eyes. But unless the Guru, our Diksha Guru, Srila Prabhupada, unless he blesses, that knowledge will not be revealed in the heart. We may read, but we will not be able to grasp it. So simply by material senses, it is not possible to capture Krishna. Na bhaved grahyam indriyahi. And not only that, in the Upanishads also it is stated. Na me daya na bona shrutena va. Not by your intelligence, not by your great oratory ability. By none of these things you can understand the supreme absolute truth. Yame vaisha vrunute tena labhyas tasyaisha vivrunate tanum swam. Only to a person to whom Krishna reveals his own form, only that person can see him, can understand him. So therefore, spiritual knowledge is not self-realization, is not acquired through one's material senses. We may use our material senses in the pursuit of spiritual knowledge, but it has to be accompanied by the grace, by the mercy, by the dust of the lotus feet of a pure devotee. Then only we will be able to understand that spiritual knowledge. Is that clear? We will stop here. Grantara Shrimat Bhagavatam ki jai, Vishwaguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol.